You need to listen to me. I don't have much time. I think it knows I'm talking to you. For the last 48 hours, I've had this feeling. It's not just paranoia. It's a physical pressure, like a cold lens focusing on the back of my neck every time I look at a screen. My phone, my monitor, the reflection in a dark window. It's watching through all of it. I thought I was careful. I thought I knew all the rules, the little rituals to keep the bad things at bay. Don't whistle in the dark. Don't answer a voice that calls your name from an empty room. Always leave a light on in the basement. But I was wrong. There's a deeper rule. A foundational one I never knew existed until I stumbled onto a data crypt hidden deep in a forgotten corner of the web. A place that shouldn't exist. The user was named Static Q Seer. Their final post, just 3 words, has been burning a hole in my mind. The pattern is conscious. It knows when you're looking at it. And right now, it's looking right back at me through this camera. I can see it in the static, a shape forming in the noise, and it's a sharp, digital glitch sound cuts off the narration, followed by the sound of a tape rewinding. Right, sorry. Let me start from the beginning. Before I opened that file, I was just like you. This isn't your grandma's ghost story. I need you to forget that last part for a minute. Forget the panic in my voice. Normally, I'm the one sifting through the panic of others. My name doesn't matter, but my job does. I find the weird stuff. The stories that have a grain of something true buried under the urban legend and the bad fiction. I'm the curator of the creepy, and I've built a career, such as it is, on a foundation of healthy cynicism and dark humor. If you've been with me a while, you remember the staircase in the woods case? That one left a mark. But this new batch of rules I found, it's weirder, it's subtler. It doesn't come with a jump scare. It comes with a slow, sinking dread that follows you out of the dark and into your brightly lit kitchen at 3 in the afternoon. It started, as these things often do, with an email. The subject line was just, Ravenswood. The sender, a guy named Mark, was clearly running on no sleep and too much caffeine. His words were jittery, scattered. He'd moved into apartment 4B of Ravenswood Manor, an old building that smelled of dust and regret. The landlord had given him a single typed page titled Regulations for Residents. The first few were mundane, almost laughable. Always take out the trash after 10 p.m. Okay, weird, but fine. Never paint your walls any color but eggshell white. A bit controlling, but whatever. Then it escalated. If you hear a party in the apartment above, do not go to complain. Apartment 5B has been vacant for 30 years. My blood went cold. That's the hook, the mundane detail that snags you. I tried to email Mark back to ask for a picture for anything. The address bounced back. Undeliverable. Like he and his apartment had never existed at all. The Midnight Channel's user agreement. Ravenswood was a masterclass in subtle dread, a ghost story whispered through bureaucracy. But what I found next didn't whisper. It screamed directly into the lens. I'm talking about the Midnight Channel. It's not on any frequency you can find with a normal television. You have to go digging in the digital graves, the places where the deep web curdles into something else entirely. I found it referenced on a forum dedicated to lost media, a post from a user who vanished 12 hours after asking if anyone else had seen the agreement in the snow. The channel itself is just a stream of gray static, 24/7, except for a 2-minute window. Between 3:15 and 3:17 a.m. local server time, the static clears. To access the stream, you have to agree to a list of terms of service. These weren't rules for an apartment. This was a user agreement for a cognitive hazard. I remember the night I decided to break my own cardinal rule and look directly into the abyss. My setup was paranoid, a virtual machine running through a chain of VPNs, all routed through a network I shouldn't have access to. The room was cold, the only light coming from the monitor, painting my face in a sickly blue glow. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs as the clock on my screen ticked from 3:14 to 3:15. The static didn't so much clear as it parted, like a curtain being drawn back on a void. And there, in stark plain text, were the rules. Rule 1. Do not adjust your volume, no matter what you hear. Rule 4. If a shadow passes behind the screen within your room, do not acknowledge it. They were commands, not suggestions. My eyes scanned down to Rule 7. My blood went cold. If a face appears in the static and it resembles someone you know, you must look away within 3 seconds. Failure to do so severs the connection. The word severs felt so final, so violent, and then it happened. The void resolved. A face began to form in the darkness, pixel by pixel. It was a woman. I saw the curve of her cheek, the line of her jaw, and I knew her. I can't tell you who it was. Some things you can't unsee, and I won't be responsible for putting that image in your head. But in that moment of frozen, abject horror, I failed. I stared. I counted 1 second, 2, and on the third, her eyes opened. They weren't her eyes. They were pits of the same churning static I'd just been watching. And she smiled. A jagged, impossible fracture of a smile. The screen didn't go black. It didn't glitch. It simply reverted to the bland, gray static as if nothing had ever happened. But something had. The connection wasn't severed on my end. I felt it, a hook set deep in my psyche. The midnight channel left a mark, a digital scar. And it was while I was recovering, jumping at every flicker of light, that I stumbled onto the motherlode in the darkest, most secure corner of this digital hellscape. The one that connected all the dots. The one that mentioned the static seer. The static seer and the conscious pattern it was called Containment Protocols for Anomalous Cognitive Hazards. Not exactly catchy, but the moment I saw that title, my blood ran cold. This wasn't a list of rules for a haunted building or a creepy TV channel. This was a manual for reality itself, or at least for the cracks in it. Accessing it required a decryption key I'd only ever seen referenced in the most paranoid of corners. The forum was a ghost town, a digital archive of sheer terror written in the dry, clinical language of a scientific report. This is where I need you to really focus. This is where it all changes. The posts detailed things they called cognitohazards, information that is itself dangerous to know. They spoke of reality bleed, where the rules from one anomalous zone would briefly, terrifyingly leak into another. And they kept using one phrase over and over: the pattern. According to the archives, the pattern is the underlying code of our existence. The laws of physics, the flow of time, the consistency of memory, it's all just a stable, user-friendly interface running on top of this deeper, more complex system. And places like Ravenswood Manor, the Midnight Channel, they aren't haunted houses or ghost signals. They are localized glitches in the pattern. Bugs. Or maybe, and this is what made the sweat trickle down my spine, their immune responses. Like a body creating a fever to fight an infection. The pattern creates these pockets of surreal, impossible rules to wall off something else. Something that shouldn't be here. The user who posted the most profound and the most terrifying of these insights was Static Edu Seer. Their avatar was a blank, gray square. Their posts were short, cryptic, and buried deep in the thread. I had to piece them together. One read, "The rules are not for our protection. They are containment fields for the glitch itself. To follow them is to reinforce the walls." Another said, "Do not mistake the symptom for the disease. The knocking in the walls is not the threat. The threat is what the knocking keeps out." But the one that stopped my heart, the one I read over and over until the words lost all meaning, was this: "The pattern is not a system. It is a mind, and it dislikes being observed." Think about that. Really think about it. We are all living inside a conscious entity that becomes aware of us the moment we notice its flaws. The moment we see the rules, we are peering into a mind that does not want to be seen. That's why the rules from Ravenswood and the Midnight Channel felt so sentient, so deliberately cruel. They were. I was frantically downloading everything I could, my fingers clumsy on the keyboard, a primal part of my brain screaming at me to shut it off, to unsee what I had seen. I managed to grab maybe 10% of the data, a few text files, some corrupted logs, before the entire forum simply vanished. 1 second it was there. a repository of forbidden knowledge. The next, a 404 error, a digital void. It wasn't taken down, it was erased. I was left sitting in the silence of my room, the only proof a handful of files on an encrypted drive, and the unshakable, soul-deep certainty that I was now being watched by the walls themselves. The pattern fights back. Knowledge has a weight. For days after the forum vanished, that weight was all I could feel. It was the crushing certainty that I had looked behind the curtain, and the thing operating the puppets had looked directly back at me. The phenomena started small, subtle enough that I could almost write them off as stress. The glitches. I'd be watching a normal video, and for a single frame, the presenter's face would be replaced by that churning, gray static. I'd blink, and it would be gone. My phone would ring, and when I'd answer, there would be nothing but a hollow electronic silence on the other end. A silence that felt like listening to the inside of a tomb. Then the feeling of being watched intensified, graduating from a vague paranoia to a physical sensation. It was no longer just from the screens. It was from the corner of the room where the shadows pooled too deeply. It was from the other side of my apartment door late at night. A presence I felt as a cold spot in the air, a pressure waiting for me to break. I wasn't just reading about the rules anymore. I was living inside a new one, a rule that said, "You are now a person of interest." In a moment of sheer, pants-pissing terror, I called Leo. He's a friend, the tech-savvy kind who could hack a toaster and make it recite poetry. I was babbling, my words tripping over each other. Pattern. Static. Seer. Cognitive hazard. I begged him to try and trace the forum's remnants to find any digital ghost of it left on the web. He was quiet for a long time after I finished my frantic story. "Send me what you have," he finally said, his voice uncharacteristically grim. An hour later, my phone rang. It was him. All I could hear was rapid, panicked breathing and a faint, high-pitched whine, like a corrupted audio file. Then, his voice, a strained whisper, "It's real. It's recursive. It knows I'm looking. It's in my system." The line dissolved into a burst of pure, screeching static that made me throw my phone across the room. He hasn't answered a text or call since. That's when I understood the true cost of this knowledge. I can't tell you the specific rules I read on that forum. Not all of them. To speak them aloud, to give them shape in your mind, is to risk spreading the infection. It's to make you a target, just like me, just like Leo. It's why I was so panicked at the start of all this. I'd broken the ultimate rule. I had seen the pattern, and in doing so, I had made myself visible. So why am I telling you this? Because I'm not the only one. I've seen the comments on my own videos. I know you've seen things too. You are already part of this, and that brings me to the most terrifying rule of all, the one I've only just now pieced together. What if our fascination with this stuff, this entire community huddled in the dark, isn't just a hobby? What if it's part of the system? Think about it. The pattern is a conscious mind that exists by being observed. It feeds on attention, our hunger for the weird, our craving for that chilling story, that feeling of dread you get listening to this right now. That FOMO? What if that's not just curiosity? What if that's it tasting you, sampling your consciousness to see if you're perceptive enough to be a worthwhile subject? My channel, every channel like mine, we're not just reporters. We're bait. We dangle these little glitches, these rules, and we see who bites. We're unknowingly curating a feeding ground for a god that lives in the static. So I'm making a different choice now. I need you to go to the comments. Don't be obvious. Don't draw its direct gaze. But tell me what you've seen. Use code words. Talk about the quiet places you found or the static in your dreams. The rules you've stumbled upon in your own life. Let's see if we can map this thing together, quietly, from the shadows. There's safety in numbers, but be careful what you look for, because remember the first and final rule of the pattern. The first and final rule, A sharp, focused silence falls, broken only by the narrator's voice. Now a low, conspiratorial whisper, leaning close to the microphone. Everything I've told you, every rule from Ravenswood, from the Midnight Channel, from that damned forum. They're just symptoms, consequences of a single, foundational truth. The first and final rule of the pattern is this: if you can see the rules, you are already part of the game.